The year is 2012. The Mayans predicted the apocalypse, but it never came. Something even bigger was on the horizon. The HGUC Gundam Mk-II. Canadian Gundam is your one-stop shop for all things plamo and Gunpla here in North America. With flat rate shipping to the US and Canada, a private warehouse option, and a vast catalog that is restocked regularly, they're going to have just about anything you're looking for. So when you're checking that vast catalog and placing your next order, don't forget to use the promo code Gunpla Network to save yourself 10% off. All jokes aside, combining the 1980s aesthetics of the Gundam Mk-II with the HGUC line's technology in 2012 was sure to be a smashing success. I mean, the Mk-II is a popular design, the HGUC line was pretty modern. I mean, it's the most modern at the era in terms of engineering. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Okay, yeah, nothing went wrong, which is par for the course. I mean, the 2010s was all about bringing back the 1980s vibes. Yakuza 0 brings the flash of the 1980s to modern gaming in a really goofy and fun way. Narcos brings the booming drug trade of the era to streaming and has a pretty successful run over several seasons, slowly deteriorating unfortunately. And the HGUC brings the 80s mecha designs to an era that can do them justice mechanically. And while we all pretty much know how this is going to end, let the battle for the spot on the shelf begin. So let's meet our challenger. The HGUC Gundam Mk-II in the AU colors is what you'd expect from a Gundam Mk-II. It's not going to dazzle you, but it is very solid for what it's supposed to be. Is it the most advanced, coolest version of the Mk-II on the market? Probably not. That's probably going to be a master grade or a rail grade. But for the price, the size, and the availability, this is a very solid option to have on your shelf, regardless whether you just like the design or you're a big Zeta Gundam fan. It has everything you would expect visually. It has some limited detailing, but enough to break up a lot of the kind of gray-white coloration. You have the chest with the little 2 extra cameras on it, which is a pretty cool added visual detail. You have a little notch in the red cockpit part that helps break up that section as well. Along with the visuals, all the accessories make sense. The beam rifle and the bazooka fit in the hand quite well. The beam sabers are very usable. The head Vulcan is a little large, but what you would expect, and the sliding shield gimmick is there, and it's fine. Not a big shield guy, so it's a little lost on me, but generally speaking, if you're in the market for a Mk-II, this is a very solid, feasible option for you. Now, how does it compare to the Super Gundam? Well, it can be the Super Gundam technically. There is a hole in the back of the backpack, a 3mm peg that you can absolutely plug the Super Gundam backpack into. I will say there's a caveat to that though, as the hand for the HGUC Mk-II does not hold the long beam rifle. You have to use the old school Super Gundam's hand, and it has all the same problems it did the first time. So if this is something you're wanting to do with your HGUC Mk-II, I would probably suggest either getting a hand in one of those hand packs or maybe shaving down the hand grip thingy on the long beam rifle. But otherwise, it is actually pretty reasonable. I don't think it looks bad. So now on to the actual battle of the Mk-IIs. I will say, this is a lot closer than I expected it to be. Now, largely speaking, I will say this is from a purely visual standpoint, but there are several features on the Mk-II that actually are on the HG Super Gundam that I like more than the HGUC. One of them being the frame is like a dark gray color. I think it's a much better contrast than the kind of light gray. Now, the light gray of the HGUC is probably a little more screen accurate, but I do like the old school Super Gundam's look. Along with that, there is kind of a little overhang between the cockpit door and the chest portion on the Super Gundam, and I like that. I like that actual depth that it adds. It's not a massive difference, and to be fair, the real grades don't have that either, but it is something I do enjoy. But outside of that, everything else is going to go in favor of the HGUC Mk-II, as you would expect. This is oddly enough something actually like posing with the bazooka, which is kind of weird because I'm not a big bazooka guy either, but I think it looks quite well. Now there is one caveat I will mention in a moment that kind of is articulation based that I kind of like the Super Gundam a little bit better for, but generally speaking, if you're going to pick between these two and the Super Gundam backpack is not a big selling point for you, the HGUC is the way to go, as you'd expect. Now that being said, if you do want to put this in a more dynamic pose, one warning I will give you is the ankle articulation is kind of weird. It is not only like somewhat of a ball joint, but it also has like this weird swivel gimmick type situation, but it's kind of weak. So while you can get a great range out of it, it is not going to be super stable. So I would recommend a stand, either using the 3mm peg in the bottom or the 3mm peg in the backpack, which is a cool option. Not a lot of suits will give you the backpack option, so that's pretty neat. But generally, I'm still going to stick with the static poses. And that's what we see here. This did win the spot on the shelf, and it is on the shelf as we see. It has its bazooka, which is a rarity. I don't think I have anything else up on my shelf right now that has its bazooka. So that's pretty cool. I do need to go in and like detail it and paint it to kind of make it match what it's supposed to, but generally speaking, I think this is a pretty good look. Now that being said, where does it fall in the tier list? The HGUC Mk-II Gundam in the AU colors falls into the not safe category. Now, not because this is bad, but largely because of the context of my shelf. It does fit well with the real grades, but it's also not a real grade. There's a lot of proportion changes, there's a lot of design choices that are different between the two. And while I think this is sufficient and I don't really have the desire to go build another real grade Mk-II at the moment, potentially down the line this may get swapped out to the real grade Mk-II in the AU colors, but at the moment it is sufficient. Now that being said, if you have the HGUC Gundam Mk-II in the AU colors, where does it fall? Is it in your bin of sadness? Is it on your shelf? Or is it a mainstay of your display? Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments down below. And as always, friends, do your best to stay safe and keep on building.